Good morning and welcome to today's Theological Leftovers. I want to talk to you about gentleness, about our words being gentle. Um, and I may be a little bit of a broken record in this, but I really genuinely believe, just as we have lost as Christians, not even just as Christians, but as reasonable people, we have lost so much of our language to people who are being unreasonable with how they use words. And it seems to me like we're about to lose the use, a reasonable use, of words like kindness and gentleness, which for us as Christians are very important words when it comes to how we live. But what I mean is we're losing these words because they have been slowly redefined. And probably that's in large part our fault because we got apathetic or we got lazy and we kind of we were the ones who initially started to change the definition to suit our purposes. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about gentleness and what gentle words really are by reading to you Proverbs chapter 15, verses 1 through 4. And I don't want you to just listen for for gentleness as you understand it, but I want you to listen to how the Bible describes what gentle words really are. All right? So Solomon in Proverbs chapter 15 writes, "A soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. The tongue of the wise commends knowledge, but the mouths of fools pour out folly. The eyes of the Lord are in every place, keeping watch on the good and the evil and the good. A gentle tongue is a tree of life, but perverseness in it breaks the spirit." There's a lot to consider there. I'm going to talk about it, break it down a little bit for you, but you may want to pause and just look this up. Proverbs 15, verses 1 through 4. The first thing I want to point out at the very beginning, when we look at this definition, try to get this biblical definition of gentleness, is this phrase, a soft answer. Solomon says, "A soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger." So when he says soft, he's talking about, I think, our intent, right? We want to use words that are avoid causing anger and wrath. Now, I know that even just this video will probably cause somebody to be angry because they disagree, and the moment we disagree, we tend to get angry. And I know there's just no way to avoid that happening to some degree. I get that. And the last thing that this proverb is trying to say, or that I'm trying to say, is that you should at all costs avoid getting people angry. It's an impossible task, and it'll keep you from saying things that need to be said. That's not the point. The point is we do not want to use words that are actually intended to provoke anger, right? And this is very tempting for us because, I think especially as Christians, when we see our culture falling apart and we see brothers and sisters in Christ who are just apathetic, or they've given up, or they're scared, we want to motivate them, and it seems like to us the best way to motivate is to shock, right? And maybe to rile up. And so it's very, very tempting for us to use words that provoke people. And I am the foremost of sinners when it comes to this. I freely admit. But what the Proverbs say, what Solomon says is, a soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. So it's better to avoid those words that we're thinking about using, that we know we're just thinking about using them because we're trying to provoke people. We're trying to get them angry, right? A lot of what we have in the media right now is that. Let's motivate our base by doing what? By infuriating them, by getting them angry. And this discourages that, I think. If you disagree, leave a comment. I'd love to know. But first, take a look and spend some time with Proverbs 15 before you respond, okay? The next thing it says, Yeah. We talked about the soft, but the next thing is it says a soft answer turns away wrath. A soft answer. If you give me an answer, then what can we assume happened prior to you giving me the answer? I asked a question, right? If I'm providing an answer for you, then you ask me a question first. And I think this is sort of assumed by this text, but I want to not assume anything and say it's better to respond to someone who has actually asked you a question. Again, social media is doesn't really wait for that sort of thing, right? I mean, just again, there's certainly a time to initiate a conversation, but if we're trying to have a meaningful conversation, if we're trying to make sure that our words are gentle, then when we respond, then it's better in many cases to respond. It's better to let the person ask the question and then answer the question, and then answer their question in a way where we're not trying to provoke them to anger, right? So it really puts us in a position of trying to help the person who has come to us. Does that make sense? A soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. The next part says, the tongue of the wise commends knowledge. Commends knowledge. I would compare this to commending a good restaurant to you, or suggesting that you not go to a restaurant that was really bad. Again, there's something that's assumed there, and that is, if I'm commending a restaurant to you, then you can assume that I've been there. And I could be specific. I could say, well, the prices were really good. The portions were huge. There'll be enough for 2 meals. So that makes up for the high price, perhaps. Most importantly, the food was excellent. Service was good. Everybody was really friendly. It was clean. On the other hand, if it was dirty, expensive, small portions, and terrible food, and they were rude to the customers, then I'm probably not going to commend that restaurant to you, right? So when the author of the Proverbs here says, the tongue of the wise commends knowledge, see, this is a wise person. This is a person who themselves started out ignorant, without knowledge, and they have gained knowledge from experience, from listening to other wise people. They have learned some good things, and now they are passing those things on to you, right? So I'm sharing with you something that I have experienced, right? The tongue of the wise commends knowledge. When I have heard something that is good, I want to pass it on. I want to share it with you. I think this is an important part of gentle speech. My goal is to share something good with you, to pass it on. And again, there's a lot of good in that. And a lot of our conversations lack goodness. But the reality is, if this person has asked me a question and I have good intentions toward them, I'm not trying to provoke them to anger, and I have good information, good knowledge, I have wisdom to share with them, then there's a lot of potential in that conversation, a lot of good stuff, right? And I would put this in contrast to so many conversations that I've had, and you probably have had as well, where you just don't really have any hope in the conversation from the very beginning. We just expect the worst, and we lose sight of the good thing that we have to share. And we forget to share it in a way that actually is considering what is best for that person that we're talking to. All of this has to do with our definition of a soft answer or of a gentle tongue, okay? So far, what you have not seen, I hope, in what I have said, certainly in this text, is anything that's wishy-washy or untrue, anything that ignores reality or ignores the facts. We don't want to make that our definition of gentle. Our goal isn't just to make sure that people's feelings aren't hurt. That's really not what we're talking about here at all. The next little part says, in contrast, the tongue of the wise that commends knowledge, the mouths of fools pour out, just pour out folly, right? many words, and the Proverbs say this often, many words are just a red flag, right? And I know this is little, well, I mean, this is good advice as you're listening to me or anybody else on YouTube. We talk a lot, and that should be a red flag for you. I better test this, right? Because many words are a red flag. The more I speak, the more likely I'm going to say something dumb, right? Or just plain wrong. It may sound good, but it could be wrong. So when you hear somebody talking a lot, boom, red flag, right? Next, the eyes of the Lord are in every place, keeping watch on the evil and good. This may not sound like it has anything to do with gentle speech, but I think it does. Because this reminds us that it is God that determines what is good and evil, right? I mean, it acknowledges that there's evil and there is good. There are such things. And these things are objective. In other words, they're outside of ourselves. There is one who judges these things and it says, that's good and that's not. There's one and only one, and that's God. Right? So we can't talk about what is kind and what is gentle without acknowledging that it's God who determines what's good and what's bad. So his own words inform us in terms of what sort of words should be coming out of our mouths. No, we do not get to make that determination. We don't get to decide. Right? Somebody can't look at the words of God and say, well, those aren't kind words. You can't do that because you are not God. You don't get to make that judgment. It's God who determines those things, right? So I think that's an important part of our understanding of kindness and gentleness. The next part says, a gentle tongue is a tree of life. I honestly don't believe, and I've gotten so much blowback on this, I honestly don't believe that even we as Christians see the true value of a gentle word. We just think that's going to get plowed over, it's going to we're going to get beaten down. Our message isn't going to be heard unless we're as loud and vocal and, quite honestly, as obnoxious as the people that are speaking a contrary message, and that's just not what we hear here. A gentle tongue is a tree of life. It's life-giving for those who hear it and receive its fruit. Right? Again, not everybody's going to, but some people, everybody needs it. Some people are starving for it, and when we speak God's word to them, we speak the truth to them, we give knowledge to them, and we do it all with them in mind. It's like giving life to them. It's like somebody who's been in a desert and finds an oasis, and there's a tree bearing fruit. That's how this is described, right? The value of a gentle tongue. Finally, the last part of that, it says, a gentle tongue is a tree of life, but perverseness in it breaks the spirit. So a perverse tongue breaks the spirit. And I'm not 100% sure what to make of that. Whose spirit? The spirit of the speaker, the spirit of the listener, the spirit of the conversation, maybe a little bit of all of that. But, and again, I've probably been as guilty of this as anybody, but when we use coarse language, when we allow perverseness as kind of our exclamation mark to make sure people know we're serious, it's not helpful. It's not a good direction to go. I don't know if this is a good comparison, but you ever have that teacher, or good example, it's not a comparison. You ever have that teacher who, the louder the class got, the quieter she got? You know what I'm saying? Or that person in your life who has this ability, the more stressful, the more anxious, the more angry a person gets, the quieter they get. They don't raise their voice. You never heard them raise their voice. And you find yourself calm me, maybe not calm me down, but quieting down because you can't hear them otherwise. Their calmness just has a way of bringing the conversation back from the brink. That's kind of how I see this Proverbs 15, 1-4. Um, it's a wonderful example of that. We have to bring conversation back from the brink so that it can be productive, so that knowledge and wisdom can be shared, and and so that people can be corrected um, and encouraged, um, so people can hear the truth again, um, and receive it. Yeah, yeah. So Proverbs 15, 1-4. Um, this is what gentleness and kindness is according to the scriptures. And it's a lot different than what's being promoted in bumper stickers and things like that. I would encourage you to spend a little bit of time, not just with this part of Proverbs, but Proverbs is beautiful for this. It offers so much wisdom. I encourage it. I commend it to you. And I commend you to like, share, and leave comments. Let me know what you think about this one. As you know, this is a topic that matters a lot to me, and I just don't think is spoken about enough. And the people who are speaking about it aren't really using the scriptures very well. So I would love to hear what you think. I guess that's it. God bless you all. God bless your week.